Part 40. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 392. Don't move, let me hold you for a while. Lei lowered his voice. Tightly imprisoned Len Ning. Len Ning's face turned red, she stopped struggling and hugged Lei Ting's waist tightly again. His face was still pressed against Lei Ting's chest, and he took a deep breath. After they separated, she also missed her eldest brother so much that she kept getting distracted while working and remembered the scene when his eldest brother talked to her before. It wasn't until she forced herself to speed up crop growth that the situation was relieved. Now that she knows that her eldest brother has the same feelings for her, she feels very sweet. Feeling Len Ning's breath on his chest, Lei's body started to heat up. After enduring for a while, Lei controlled his inappropriate impulse and finally let go of Len Ning. Breathing in the cool air, Len Ning suddenly became clearer. Let's go, I'll take you to dinner. Lei raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Yes. Len Ning consciously handed his small hand to Lei Ting's big hand. Lei took Len Ning and led her back. Li Feng, who was not far away, immediately realized something was wrong and quickly prepared to get out of the way. He just saw something he shouldn't have seen. If Mr. Lei and Miss Lei find out, the consequences will be disastrous. Unfortunately, there was no cover where he was, and Lei saw him before he could escape. Accidentally meeting Lei's gaze, Li Feng's expression was uglier than crying. The strange thing is that Lei raised the corners of his mouth lightly and showed no sign of anger. Li Feng was wondering when Len Ning also discovered him. Len Ning, who looked shy just now, suddenly became a little stiff, and the hand held by Lei Ting subconsciously wanted to pull out. It's a pity that she couldn't pull out at all because she was squeezed tightly by Lei. I was a little annoyed at what Lei had done, but there was nothing I could do about him. The unhappy mood only lasted for 2 seconds before Len Ning compromised. Anyway, Li Feng had already seen the fact that she was with his eldest brother, and if he tried to hide it, he would look guilty. This is really not her style. You're off work thinking of this, Len Ning simply said to Li Feng. Why is this kid so serious about his work? Wouldn't it be better to get off work early with the workers? Li Feng was slightly relieved when he heard that Len Ning just asked him to get off work. But he still couldn't help but look at the hands held by Len Ning and Lei. Ahem. Remember to arrange a few more workers to cooperate with me tomorrow morning. Len Ning interrupted Li Feng's gaze. Yes. Li Feng quickly withdrew his gaze and said respectfully. Len Ning didn't say anything more and obeyed Li Feng's lead and walked past Li Feng. It wasn't until the two of them were far away that Li Feng came back to his senses. I once suspected that what I just saw was an illusion. Big thing. The lady is really with Mr. Lei. No. He has to go back and talk to the people in the Manman team about this. They must not know the news yet. Thinking of this, Li Feng quickly chose another path and left. Although it has passed the closing time of the vegetable base, people are still leaving other places in the vegetable base. Len Ning noticed the situation and subconsciously pulled on Lei Ting's arm. What's wrong? Lei asked knowingly. Yes. He intentionally wanted people to know about his relationship with Xiaoning, and he didn't want to just develop a relationship with Xiaoning behind his back. Unfortunately, Xiaoning seemed to be different from what he thought. How about we leave later? Len Ning said to Lei Ting with some pleading. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 393. All the employees here know her, and if anyone sees her, the news that she is in love with Lei will spread immediately. Why do you have to wait a while? Lei was naturally unwilling. He came over from get off work early, firstly to pick her up, and secondly for this purpose. He wants to be Xiaoning's boyfriend in an honest way. Of course, this must be above board and not so deliberate. Brother, Len Ning shouted angrily, her face turned red. If she had just suspected it just now, now she was sure that he was doing it intentionally. Seeing Len Ning's reaction, Lei Lei was filled with smiles. The big hand increased its strength and held Len Ning's small hand. He looked at Len Ning seriously and said, "Does Xiao Ning want me to hide in the dark all the time?" Although it was a question, the tone was a statement. No, no, Len Ning felt guilty and couldn't help but say. "Since there isn't, let's go." Lei Lei didn't pause, pulling Len Ning and continuing to move forward. At the same time, the corners of his mouth were raised slightly. Len Ning thought Lei Ting was angry, and if he dared to have any opinions, he could only follow Lei Ting. As a result, the workers who left late saw a handsome man dragging their young lady. The man has an outstanding temperament, the woman is charming, and they are a perfect match. The workers were stunned. Their always cold and domineering young lady actually has such a feminine side? It seems that she is really in love with her mysterious boyfriend. Also, the lady's boyfriend looks so good looking. The aura is so strong, I don't know what the background is. When the two walked away, the workers immediately started a heated discussion, but no one knew Lei Ting's identity. However, they have several general suspects. First came the two vice captains of the Manman team, followed by 3 of the 4 hall masters, as well as several other high-ranking figures in the military. The first to be eliminated were the 2 vice captains of the Manman team because their ages seemed inconsistent. Then he excluded the senior military officials, because despite their high positions and authority, they seemed to be quite young. The last possible one is one of the 3 hall leaders of the 4-color group. Bagua employees began to speculate again as to who in the 4-color group Thunder was. Among them, the most people supported Blue Snake, feeling that Lei Lei's image was more in line with their imagined image of the Blue Snake Hall Master. Those who supported the Yellow Monkey were ranked second, because the Black Tiger, who was ranked third, was said to be as tall as an ox, and his appearance should not be consistent with the Thunder they had seen. Ever since, news spread that the young lady was suspected of being in love with the master of the Blue Snake Hall. Lei Lei was almost angry when he learned the news afterwards. Blue Snake? Yellow Monkey, Black Tiger? How many are in the military department? Those 2 guys from the Manman team. Which of these people fits your image? Have those people's eyes been blurred? After questioning him for a while, no one suspected him. Back in time, Lei Lei picked up Len Ning for a date after get off work. Naturally, the first stop for the 2 of them was to go to Lin's restaurant for dinner. Facing the sumptuous dishes, Len Ning started cooking immediately. Boss Lin specially sent a diamond VIP card to the vegetable base today, saying that I will not be charged for eating here in the future, Len Ning said cheerfully. Lin's consumption is not low, and Boss Lin's gift is not light. Although she knew in her heart that Lin Lanchen wanted to curry favor with herself and the Lei family, she still found it useful. After all, she really likes Lin's food. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 394. Yeah, Lei Lei responded. He naturally received the so-called diamond VIP card, but he just threw it into the space ring without taking it seriously. Lin Lanchen wanted to gain a foothold in the Thunder base, so he gave him this opportunity. Zhou Tao and the others seemed to have returned. Just in time, I'll bring them over for a nice meal tomorrow, Len Ning said with a smile. At noon, I heard that Li Feng was back and was lying at home to repair. It was really hard on them to stay outside for so long. Treat them to a nice meal and treat it as a reward. Furthermore, it has been a long time since their Manman team got together for dinner. When Len Ning mentioned Zhou Tao, Lei Lei frowned slightly. That kid didn't seem to have any good intentions towards Xiaoning. Okay, I'll treat you tomorrow night, Lei Lei suddenly answered. Len Ning was stunned. Some suspected that they heard wrongly. Brother, treat me to a treat? Kongzhen is very important to the Thunder base. I invite them to dinner because I want to help you check, Lei Lei said sternly. Xiaoning asked him if he wanted Kongzhen, and he naturally gave it to him. She wanted to let her people take the lead in the construction of Kongzhen, and he agreed. Just building a small base is not that simple. He wanted to see if those boys had the determination and skill. Of course, the most important thing is that he must declare his sovereignty. According to what the book said, as Xiaoning's boyfriend now, he should come out to treat Xiaoning's friends to dinner, which is considered a serious acquaintance with her family members and her friends. Secondly, he can also take the opportunity to confirm his identity as Xiaoning's boyfriend and let those with evil intentions put an end to their inappropriate thoughts as soon as possible. Yeah. Okay, Len Ning agreed to Lei Ting's proposal without doubting his presence. With the eldest brother personally coming forward, those boys must be more convinced and interested. Lei Lei raised his lips slightly and gave Len Ning a piece of her favorite dish. Eat more. Thank you, brother. You eat too. Len Ning started eating happily. After the meal, the two took a walk in the market. Although the wind was a bit cold, the two of them felt warm in their hearts. When Kongtown is developed, Thunder Base will probably be deserted because the place is small and there are too many survivors. The current population density of Thunder Base is actually very high. Now, because of the onset of winter, people go home early and there are few people on the streets. Normally, the night market would be quite busy. It should be said that it is to alleviate population pressure. Lei Lei raised the corner of his mouth slightly. He had actually considered expanding the Thunder Base to Kongtown before, but Xiaoning was the first to propose it to him. Since Xiaoning has such an idea, he naturally supports it. Len Ning glanced at Lei Lei and said, "You really aren't worried about me at all." Based on her qualifications and strength, all the four hall masters are above her. In a place like Kongzhen, it shouldn't be her turn no matter what. But when she made the request, the eldest brother agreed without even thinking. Regardless of whether it was the past life or this life, the eldest brother really loved her miserably. Lei Lei stretched out his big hand and directly took Len Ning into his arms. "What are you worried about? What's mine is yours. If you want it, I can give it all to you." A low voice passed into Len Ning's ears. Len Ning's heart trembled, and he pressed against Lei Ting's body in cooperation. No more words. After walking for a long time, Len Ning remembered what he wanted to discuss with Lei Lei. Too many manpower are needed to build Kongtown. I want to recruit from other bases. Len Ning told Lei Lei about his thoughts. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kge Now. Chapter 395. It's a good idea, Lei Lei affirmed. But there is no need to make it too difficult for yourself. I will arrange some manpower for you. The people at the Thunder Base will definitely be much easier to use. Thank you, brother. Len Ning shook the hand he held with Lei Lei, but I want to rely on myself as much as possible. Lei Ting was about to speak when he heard Len Ning say. Besides, if the Thunder Base wants to develop, it also needs more people. I already have some plans. Brother, you might as well help me with the details. Lei Lei stopped what he was about to say and said, "You say it?" Today's Xiaoning is very strong in terms of strength and knowledge, and he is really curious about her thoughts. Now in our city except for our Thunder Base, it can be said that the situation of all major bases is not very good. It can even be said to be quite bad. Yeah, Lei Lei responded. The first is the threat of zombies. This is actually the same for everyone, Len Ning continued. Without the blessing of thermal weapons, they can only rely on combat-type superpowers to use superpowers to fight against zombies. This is effective when dealing with small-scale zombies. But if we encounter a zombie wave, the base will most likely be destroyed. This is also the reason why all major bases want to establish diplomatic relations with Thunder Base. First, they need our thermal weapons to strengthen base defense and deal with zombie attacks. Second, they also want to use the alliance agreement to allow Thunder Base to deal with them at critical moments. They helped. Thunder nodded in agreement. Although the establishment of diplomatic relations with those bases was short, those bases had already purchased a lot of arms from him, and the number of subsequent orders was also very large. In addition, he also abided by his agreement and sent soldiers to rescue a small base that encountered a zombie wave, and also helped the small base get out of trouble smoothly. Because of this incident, the major bases in Cydia now have even greater respect for the Thunder Base, and more bases have taken the initiative to come to their door. In addition to the external threat of zombies, they also have a strong internal survival crisis, Len Ning continued. Unlike our Thunder Base, their bases don't have vegetable bases, or their wood-type superpowers can't satisfy the supply of food supplies at all. Lei gave Len Ning an appreciative look. The development of their base to this level is all thanks to the vegetable base managed by Xiaoning. Food is the most important thing for the people, and sufficient food is the foundation for the development of the base. According to reliable information, although our vegetable base has sold a large amount of grain and vegetable materials to external bases, there are still people in major bases who are hungry, and some are even starved to death. Speaking of this, Len Ning's eyes flashed. Not a lot of emotion, just stating the facts. In fact, the vegetable base can continue to increase vegetable output and provide more vegetable grains to major bases, but Len Ning intends to control the number of secondary crops sold externally. This is why the employees at the vegetable base get off work on time every day. Food determines the development speed of the base. If she really makes those bases full, it will not be a good thing for the Thunder Base. Especially, she now wants to go to various bases to ask for people. Just imagine, if those bases could feed so many people, why would they be willing to give them to her? Who doesn't know that the more people there are, the easier it is for the economy to develop? A flash of light flashed in Lei's eyes, and he already had some ideas in his mind. Len Ning smiled at Lei. I will mention this matter to Teacher Zhang when I go to Quanglan Base in a few days. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Qi Now. Chapter 396. If he wants to cooperate with us, he has to show some sincerity. Len Ning raised a sly smile. Lei stopped and caught a glimpse of Len Ning's expression. He couldn't help but touched Len Ning's head. Smart guy. Then he hugged Len Ning. Len Ning was startled. I felt relieved after I found that there were only a few people around, and most of them were in a hurry and didn't look at them. He originally wanted to push Lei Ting away, but Len Ning thought about it and decided against it. Instead, he hugged Ting Ting back. Brother, do you think I'm a little cruel? Len Ning asked carefully after a while. In fact, she could have saved more people, but she didn't. In my heart, Xiaoning is the best. Lei didn't answer, but just said. Len Ning's heart trembled, and the uneasiness in his heart was relieved. The two hugged each other for a long time before Len Ning pushed Lei away and came out of his arms. Using vegetables and food to replace Quanglan Base, what do you think of my idea? Len Ning looked at Lei and asked. Yes, Lei gave Len Ning an appreciative look. If the Quanglan Base is successful, it will be much easier for other bases. Lei continued. According to the current situation of the Thunder Base, the more people, the better. Len Ning smiled confidently. I'm sure of this. Teacher Zhang wants to use the Thunder Base to get to the top, so he will help no matter what at this time. Moreover, this favor is not a bad thing for Quanglan Base. On the contrary, it can help them get out of the current predicament, which is a win-win situation for both parties. Don't worry. If you need help, just tell me. Lei patted Len Ning on the shoulder. Of course. Why don't you bother me to send a car to help me pick up people then? Len Ning said with a smile. Okay. Lei looked doting on his face. Then, the two of them continued walking forward. Discuss some issues regarding the construction of Kongzhen. In the end, Considering that the construction of Kongzhen required a large number of manpower, Len Ning decided to start the recruitment plan tomorrow and recruit a small number of soldiers first for ease of deployment. As soon as he returned to Lei's house, Len Ning hurriedly said goodbye to Lei and ran to Villa F-06. At this time, Li Feng and everyone in the Manman team were still awake and were eating in the living room. Seeing Len Ning arriving, everyone rushed to welcome him. "I've eaten. You guys eat quickly. Come to the study on the second floor in 10 minutes. I have something to say." Len Ning refused the invitation of Zhou Tao and others and went directly to the second floor. "Everyone, look at me, I look at you, and hurry up to eat. The boss came here so late, something big happened." About 8 minutes later, everyone in the Manman team and Li Feng all arrived in the study. "Sit down," Len Ning said with a smile as he looked at the people who came in neatly. Everyone was not polite and found a seat to sit down. Len Ning glanced around the room, and finally focused on Yuan Xing's face. "Go out and find all the parts," he then asked. "She didn't go to the military office today, and Sister Honghu didn't come to inform her of the news, so she didn't know how the mission was completed. However, the Manman team did not proactively report to her after they returned, so the mission must have gone smoothly. We've found them all. By the way, we also got a lot of pharmaceutical factory equipment," Yuan Xing said with a smile. They followed Master Chen Yu's instructions throughout the process. When they came back, none of the space jade items they had on them was empty, they were all heavy equipment. Len Ning nodded. "Just finish it. I came here to tell you about the establishment of the fifth branch," Len Ning said directly. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 397. For a moment, everyone in the room sat upright and looked at Len Ning with keen eyes. "I have decided to activate the fifth branch now." Len Ning's eyes let out a light. There was silence in the study, and everyone's breathing suddenly froze. Sun Qi, Len Ning named him. "Here." Sun Qi instantly jumped up from the sofa and stood up straight. "Now, I appoint you as the deputy head of the fifth branch. You will be in charge of everyone's actions when I am away," Len Ning said solemnly. The scene fell silent for a moment. Sun Qi looked shocked, unable to believe what he just heard. Then he quickly glanced at Zhou Tao and Yuan Xing, then immediately cupped his fists at Len Ning and said, "Miss." Knowing what Sun Qi wanted to say, Len Ning waved his hand to interrupt. "I have my intention in making you the deputy hall master." Len Ning then looked at Zhou Tao and Yuan Xing. "Do you two have any objections?" Zhou Tao and Yuan Xing recovered from the shock, looked at each other, stood up and said, "No objection. Brother Sun has clear ideas and accurate judgments. With him leading us, our efficiency will be higher." Yuan Xing took the lead. "I'm also convinced by Brother Sun," Zhou Tao followed. There was no dissatisfaction in his eyes. Len Ning nodded. In such a short period of time, she was able to make her two vice-captains willingly agree to surrender, which further proved that Sun Qi was capable and her vision was not wrong. "Miss, no," Sun Qi quickly declined. Sun Qi clenched his fists at Len Ning and said seriously, "I recommend Brother Yuan Xing to be the deputy hall leader. Regardless of qualifications or ability, he should be the one." Everyone in the room looked at Yuan Xing. Len Ning also looked at Yuan Xing. "Yuan." After saying that, Yuan Xing turned to look at Sun Qi again, bowed to him and clasped his fists and said, "Brother Sun, you should be merciful at critical moments. You will be the deputy hall leader, and all brothers will obey you." "Yes. I'm convinced too," Zhou Tao followed. "We also obey you, Brother Sun," the others followed. Sun Qi's eyes were moved when he saw that everyone trusted him so much. Len Ning nodded with satisfaction and looked at Sun Chi again. A true man does his duty. Sun Chi, don't betray everyone's trust, Len Ning said solemnly. Sun Chi's eyes flashed with determination, and he finally turned around and saluted Len Ning. Sun Chi thanked the hall master. He accepted Len Ning's appointment. Everyone's faces were filled with joy. Yuan Xing, Zhengpan, Len Ning continued to name them. Yes, the two men stepped forward immediately. You are now appointed as the helmsman and deputy helmsman of the first branch of the fifth branch, Len Ning said solemnly. The two looked at each other with smiles in their eyes. Yes, then he responded. Zhou Tao, Li Qiang, Len Ning continued to name them. Yes, the two of them immediately moved forward. You are appointed as the helmsman and deputy helmsman of the second branch of the fifth branch. Yes. Everyone in the room looked happy. Now that I have become an official, I feel like I am a high-ranking official. It feels really good. Len Ning paused for a while and then looked at Sun Chi. You decide the four rudders of the third and fourth rudders. There were still 3 people in the Wolf Fang mercenary team before, and the number of places was less than 4. The fourth branch will be short of a person in charge. She didn't have much contact with the people in the Wolf Fang mercenary team, and didn't know enough about their character and endurance. It was most appropriate to leave this matter to Sun Chi. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Ki Now. Chapter 398. As for the vacant spot, she believed that Sun Chi would be able to arrange for someone to fill it sooner or later. Yes, Sun Chi said to Len Ning, cupping his fists. The 3 members of the Lanja mercenary team immediately looked at Sun Chi with burning eyes. Their boss is now the deputy leader, and they will soon become the helmsman. They will finally have the opportunity to show off their ambitions. Liang Hui, Lu Lang, you serve as the helmsman and deputy helmsman of the third branch, Sun Chi said solemnly. Lu Lang's eyes flashed with disappointment, but it only lasted for a moment before he and Liang Hui rushed to Sun Chi and responded with fists. Yu Jin, you will be the fourth helmsman. Sun Chi then looked at Yu Jin. Thank you, Deputy Hall Master. Yu Jin immediately saluted Sun Chi with clasped fists. After Sun Chi arranged all this, he turned around and saluted Len Ning. Go back to the Hall Master, the arrangements have been made. Len Ning nodded. Xiaobao. Len Ning then looked at Xiaobao, who was standing in the corner and had not said a word. Xiaobao raised his head with a happy face, stood up quickly, and saluted Len Ning with cupped fists. You serve as the doctor of the fifth branch, Len Ning said solemnly. Xiaobao was silent. He didn't look up or answer. The boss and brother Sun have just arranged everyone's positions. Except for the vacant position of deputy helmsman of the fourth branch, the other positions are already filled. The boss called his name, and he was secretly happy. He thought he could be the deputy helmsman of the fourth branch, but unexpectedly he was only asked to be a doctor. Physician. That's a civilian job. Of course he doesn't want to be. During this time, he was conducting devil training in the military headquarters, and then went out on missions with the rest of the Manman team. During this period, his performance was recognized by everyone. Although his current strength is not as strong as those with fighting abilities, it is still enough to surpass many of them. Even if the boss doesn't give him the position of deputy helmsman, he shouldn't be given a civilian position. The room was quiet. Len Ning looked at Xiaobao. Any comments? Xiaobao raised his head suddenly, with a stubborn and angry look on his face. But as soon as he saw Len Ning's serious face, he lowered his head again. Master, I don't want to be a doctor. After struggling for 2 seconds, Xiaobao finally protested. He couldn't compromise. If he did, he would really have to be a doctor. The room became quieter. Everyone glanced at Xiaobao and sympathized with the little one. This time they took Xiaobao out on a mission, and Xiaobao's performance was indeed beyond their expectations, and could even be said to be remarkable. he is efficient and neat when killing zombies, and he is nimble and fast when traveling, but he doesn't look like a child no matter how he looks at it. But despite this, he is still a child after all, and he is not yet a combat superpower. Due to his talent limitations, no matter how hard he worked, he would never be able to reach their level. He wanted to be the co-helmsman of the 5th Division. As long as the Hall Master acts rationally, this is absolutely impossible. Then what do you want to be? Len Ning asked in a deep voice. Xiaobao struggled internally. What does he want to be? Naturally, he is the helmsman of the 5th branch. But he couldn't say it now. At this moment, Xiaobao felt so resentful that he was not a combat-type superpower. He hates why he can't get rid of his fate even if he tries it over again. Yes, he has been different since Len Ning gave him a transparent crystal core to upgrade his healing power. Like Len Ning, he is also a reborn person. The only difference is that he died in the 11th year of the end of the world, and he happened to be 18 years old when he died. It was also for this reason that he refused so much when he came into contact with Len Ning. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 399. Because the soul of an 18-year-old boy lives in his body, 1 year older than Len Ning's current age. Because he was reborn, he knew his true identity, and he also knew that his grandfather would find him and his mother sooner or later and take them back. But so what? He is still a support system user. Even if his grandfather intends to hand over the management of the base to him, the people below will not accept him. The final result can only be that my grandfather was plotted to death, and he and his mother were persecuted to death by the traitors. No, no, he must not repeat the mistakes of his previous life. This life is different from the previous life. He and his mother met the boss and arrived at the Thunder base. The boss and the Thunder base are huge variables, and many things in this life have changed. In the previous life, the family was rescued after staying in the cellar for an extra week. Then they followed the people who rescued them to the Tiger Shark base. According to the information he learned, the Tiger Shark base still exists in this life, and it is a small base just like the previous life. There was a lack of supplies and chaos, and the base almost relied on its fists to do the talking. After arriving at the Tiger Shark base, their family quickly began to starve because they had no special powers. His cowardly father quickly used his crooked ideas to trick him and his mother into selling them to a brothel. Yes, the world is in chaos after the end of the world, and there are many dirty and chaotic places in bases, large and small. His mother tried her best to protect him and chose to hit the wall. Fortunately, he awakened a healing power at the critical moment. It was also because of his supernatural powers that he and his mother escaped the tragedy of becoming servants. Before, the boss and Uncle Liang took him and his mother out of the village, abandoning his father in the village. Afterwards, his mother came to talk to him specifically, hoping to reassure him that he shouldn't hold grudges against his boss. He certainly doesn't hold a grudge, he's even grateful. That scumbag doesn't deserve to be his father. Letting him die in the village was the best outcome for him. After all, in his last life, he ended his life with his own hands. After the healing power user awakened, he was sold by the owner of the kill to a high-level executive of the Tiger Shark base at a high price. At his request, the higher-up allowed him to bring his mother with him. Since then, he has been living with his mother in the Tiger Shark base for more than 2 years. During this period, he saw the men harassing his mother many times, and even became very unruly towards himself. He had no choice but to dodge and dodge as much as possible. Fortunately, that person needed his healing power to please the higher UPS and did not dare to force him. In this way, he and his mother have been preserved. After that, Grandpa finally found them, ended their life of panic, and took them to City B. Before leaving, he personally dealt with the pervert. After castrating him, he was thrown into the largest brothel in the Tiger Shark base. He originally thought that he would usher in a new life after leaving the Tiger Shark base, but this was not the case. Although my grandfather was the city lord of Yangdao base, he had no successor except him, his grandson. It would be fine if he was a combat-type superpower, but he happened to be an auxiliary superpower. Naturally, such a sudden successor cannot convince those who are ambitious. Therefore, his grandfather had extremely strict requirements on him, and his training methods were particularly cruel. At that time, he even thought that his grandfather only regarded him as a tool and did not regard him as a relative. He secretly swore in his heart that he would make his grandfather regret it when his wings matured. With this belief, he trained like crazy to improve his strength. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 400. Grandpa was very pleased with this and finally officially introduced him to everyone. But at the banquet, someone actually brought up the matter of him and his mother being sold into a brothel at the Tiger Shark base, and then the matter of him and his mother staying in a pervert's home for more than 2 years. Grandpa's face turned black with anger at that time, but he did not deal with that person and only said it was a misunderstanding. But everyone present at the time remembered this in their hearts. So after he joined politics, few people really thought highly of him, and everyone talked about him behind his back. Some subordinates who were originally loyal to Grandpa gradually changed their minds due to their own reasons. Although he tried very hard to prove himself later on, because he was an auxiliary superpower, he was never able to give good answers on the battlefield. It wasn't until the 10th year of the end of the world that my grandfather was plotted against, and finally he and his mother could no longer be protected. It was also at that time that he realized that his grandfather loved him and his mother. It's a pity that even though he tried his best, he couldn't make them safe. After that, he only lived 2 days longer than his grandfather, and then he and his mother died in the hands of the rebels. Thinking of the death of his grandfather and the death of himself and his mother in his previous life, Xiaobao was filled with grief. No, he couldn't let the tragedy of his previous life happen again. In this life, he and his mother never went to the Tiger Shark base, and nothing ugly happened to them. It's still not too late. Also, a boss and a thunder base appeared in his world in this life. Although he didn't know why, he was certain that the thunder base in this life was different from the previous life. Although the thunder base in the previous life was also very powerful, it did not develop so fast at all. The current situation of the thunder base is even comparable to the level in the 3rd year of the apocalypse in the previous life, or even beyond. He guessed that the biggest variable in this was the boss. The boss's powerful wood-type abilities and wood-type spiritual pet juice greatly accelerated the development of the thunder base. Nowadays, the vegetable base can be said to be the only one, and all the bases in Cydia rely on such a place to supply food supplies. Coupled with the large amount of arms and supplies produced by the military arsenal, the thunder base will become stronger and stronger in the long run. In the previous life, it is said that the powerful thunder was killed because of a woman. After that, the powerful thunder base was destroyed by the Southern Army base. When my grandfather heard the news, he sighed for a long time. It was also at that time that he realized that his grandfather was actually more interested in joining the thunder base before joining the Southern Army base camp. At that time, my grandfather sent someone to the thunder base to propose marriage. The person to propose marriage to is the boss. Yes, Grandpa originally wanted to seek asylum for him through marriage. At that time, as long as Lei Ting agreed to the marriage, my grandfather would have the opportunity to gradually overpower him. Then bring the Yangdao base closer to the thunder base. Even if he is gone from now on, no one in Yangdao base will dare to act rashly against him as long as Lei is around. It's a pity that the thunder refused at the time, and even changed its attitude towards the Yangdao base because of this. It was also for this reason that my grandfather later joined the camp of the Southern Army base. Now it seems that the reason why Mr. Lay rejected his grandfather was because he had other thoughts about his boss. This makes sense. He loves his boss, so how could he accept his grandfather's marriage proposal? He had seen Lei Xiao and the boss get along, and the emotion was probably something only the boss couldn't understand. It's ridiculous. When he knew the identity of the boss in this life, he thought it was a God-given marriage, but it turned out that he was overthinking it. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 401. Just an hour ago, Li Feng came back and told them that Lei Xiao and the boss were already in a relationship. He felt extremely sour in his heart, and then slowly felt relieved. After all, various previous signs have shown that the relationship between the boss and Mr. Lei is no longer a simple brother and sister. Presumably the woman who caused Mr. Lei to be plotted to death in his previous life was also the boss. With Mr. Lei's temperament, if he wasn't the boss, who could make him risk everything? But boss. He could feel that the boss had many secrets. She told them that the reason she knew so much information about the apocalypse was because she dreamed about what would happen after the apocalypse. Is it really? He didn't believe it. He had some suspicions that the boss was a reborn person like himself, but he couldn't be sure. If the boss was really reborn, it would be even more impossible for anyone to get involved between her and Mr. Lei. After all, how many women would reject a man who was willing to die for them? That man is so good. At the same time, if she is truly a reborn person, she will definitely use her abilities to change the future direction of the Thunder Base. In fact, she is already doing this. Vegetable base, pharmaceutical factory, and now the fifth branch. Which project is not crucial? Thinking of this, Xiaobeo's heart became much clearer. The probability that the boss is a reborn person is quite high. He was so envious. The boss has the ability to make changes and control the future. But he, so far, has not been able to find a way to change his destiny. I can be a doctor, but I want to go to the battlefield, Xiaobeo finally said. After sorting out his thoughts, Xiaobeo finally realized that according to his current situation, Len Ning would never let him be the helmsman of the fifth branch. In desperation, I had no choice but to say. Sooner or later, he and his mother would go back to Yangdao base. If he couldn't go to the battlefield and make achievements, he might still be unable to escape the fate of his previous life. The room was quiet. Len Ning frowned slightly. Xiaobeo seems to be really enthusiastic about going to the battlefield. Seeing that Len Ning didn't speak for a long time, Xiaobeo felt uneasy. Okay, I will let you go to the battlefield when necessary, Len Ning then said in a deep voice. Xiaobeo frowned. When needed. Thank you, boss. Although he was a little reluctant, Xiaobeo still chose to accept it. Let's do this for now. He has already moved into this villa and has established a good relationship with everyone. There will be plenty of opportunities later. Len Ning nodded and continued to discuss matters with everyone. There are many things to do when the fifth branch is initially established. I hope you all can work together to build the fifth branch as soon as possible, Len Ning said. Yes, everyone said in unison and bowed to Len Ning. Although my appointments are different, my expectations for you are the same. You are the first backbone of the fifth branch, and you will also be the helmsman of the fifth branch in the future. Currently, the fifth branch only has 4 branches, and in the future there will be a 5th, 6th, and even a 3rd. 10. A year from now, I hope to see each of you lead a team and show me a different mental outlook. At this moment everyone was convinced. Therefore, the so-called deputy helmsman is the helmsman of other sub-rudders in the future. As the fifth branch grows, there will be many opportunities in the future. Len Ning's words gave the deputy helmsman an instant direction in their hearts. Including Xiaobeo. Living in his body is 18-year-old Liang Ziyu. He has learned a lot of useful knowledge from his grandfather, which will come in handy sooner or later. Even if he starts as a doctor, he will definitely be able to achieve results. Seeing everyone's reaction, Len Ning nodded with satisfaction.